Can you hear me, brother?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Doing all right. I don't like this cam in this new studio, but it's gonna have to do for the day. Did you see the script?
Yeah.
All right. Let me check and make sure we live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the BCSN SportsWrap. Brian Fulford, AD Drew. Hold up. Let me pause on that. Brian is not here today. Brian just got through uncovering the SIAC baseball championships. So had to pull in some reinforcements. So who do I have? My homeboy from the Loop, Kelvin Carter. Kelvin, my brother, how are you doing today?
Oh, doing well, man. Just got back in from DC. So looking forward to today's show and looking forward to getting into it, see what we got on the sports wrap.
Chocolate City, man.
Yeah, you call it that. Good place. It's a good place. Good place.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's always great to get DC, especially if you come out there with a check or two. We ain't gonna get into your personal business though, but that's always a
All
good
right.
thing when you're in DC. But hey, everybody, check this out. This is what I need you to do. I need you to do one of these following things. I need you to hit that thumbs up button if you follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whichever platform you follow us. Give us a good rating. Download this. Share this with a friend. Make sure you hit the subscribe button in addition to the thumbs up button. That way we can keep the algorithms going. And if you feel like, just if you feel like my brother or my sister, donate to us, give us a little small, some pocket change, Kelvin. I'm not asking for a whole lot, just a little pocket change, man. You think that's too much to ask for about a cup of coffee from some people, man?
Oh, no way. It's always a
As Kelvin lost his connection there, we'll allow Kelvin to get a moment to jump back in. So you hit the wrong button, man. See, I should have asked them for money, man. They sniped you when we asked them for money,
right.
man. But hey, we got an action-packed show today. We got some champions who are gonna be here with us today, Kelvin.
Okay.
All right. It's hot baseball, softball, but where I want to get started at, Kelvin, is football. We can talk
Okay.
football 24/7, 365. Let's start off with this one. Coach Reggie Barlow. Now we know he's on the professional ranks right now, but he is an HBCU alum, HBCU lifer, coached at two HBCUs, that being Alabama State and most recently Virginia State. Coach Reggie Barlow was named the XFL Coach of the Year. He's getting his team ready for the XFL Championship on this upcoming Saturday. Just your thoughts on, hey, seeing one of our HBCU brothers going out and doing something on a professional level and proving himself.
Well, I think it gives a lens to the students that he's dealt with, student athletes that he's dealt with in his career in HBCU football. And I also think that it gives us another avenue of someone that like understands the dynamics of the players that we have in the XFL. If you notice, the kid that was the quarterback of the St. Louis Battlehawks a couple of years back ended up being the starting quarterback for the Washington Commanders. So I think it's many people as we can get in these places and get these, high quality coaches in these different arenas. The USFL, I believe it just restarted today, or it's about to start here soon.
It's about 3 weeks in.
Yeah, 3 weeks in. So you got XFL, USFL, opportunities for guys to show that they can play next level, and oftentimes, long road travel, but the destination is where it needs to be, which is in the professional ranks.
Yeah, Coach Reggie Barlow coached at Virginia State. That was his most recent stop in HBCU land. He was 34-16, including a 5-5 campaign on his last year. He spent 5 years at Virginia State. Also, before that, he was at Alabama State, his alma mater, for 2007 to 2014, where he went 49-42. He was a draft choice of the Jacksonville Jaguars in 1996 and played 8 seasons in the NFL as a wide receiver and as a kick returner. Spent 5 years in Jacksonville, 2 years with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and his final season in Oakland. Quote, Barlow, I am who I am because of HBCUs, because of Alabama State giving me an opportunity to come there to play college football. Also, giving me the opportunity to come back and be the head coach. I learned so much from Alabama State, that experience, and then I was able to go to Virginia State, which is a fine university that gave me an opportunity to continue to be a better coach, to continue to learn my craft. So Reggie Barlow definitely giving his shout out, and that was from his interview on ESPN's First Take earlier this week. So Reggie Barlow not forgetting his. Any final comments on Reggie Barlow, Kelvin?
No, I just think it's a great thing, and I hope to see it as another avenue of our coaches that aspire to be professional coaches, be on professional staff. So it should be a great situation for him as he transitions, and hopefully this could lead to NFL opportunities or opportunities to, get into higher spaces in the NFL.
All right. Speaking of NFL, Shaquan Davis, outstanding wide receiver for the South Carolina State Bulldogs, part of that 2021 national championship team under Buddy Pugh, where he signed a contract, a UFDA contract with the New Orleans Saints. I know my buddy Carlos Brown is giddy over that, but it was a 6-figure contract, Kelvin, for $750,000. So Shaq Davis not getting drafted, not one of the 260 players drafted, but his guarantee is $216,000 of that $750,000. So he got a bag, my brother. He got a bag. What are your thoughts on the draft? Because I didn't get an opportunity to go over it last week because I was out of the show last week. So just give me your general thoughts on HBCU players and the draft.
Well, this is my opinion. We've been talking about this all week. I think there were 13 FCS players drafted overall, and they had a list out of it. And I believe a couple kids from Jackson State made that list. One. Okay. So,
and not to cut you off, of those players, there were 12 FCS and 1 Division II.
Right. Well, 13 outside of the power. If you really look at it for what it's worth, I'm congratulations to the young man. I think it's a great deal that the undrafted free agent space is where it's supposed to be. If you're a GM of one of these teams, you have to keep your farm system happy, and we're not their farm system. Their farm system are your Power 5 schools. So even if these guys, I'll go on the record, I believe Shaq Davis is going to make a roster. The kid out of Jackson State is going to make a roster. I believe they're going to make roster. 55-man rosters or 53-man rosters. However, they have to keep their constituents happy. And we all looked at it and said that when you get below round 5 anyway, or outside of round 3, it's just invites to camp, it's pomp and circumstance, hearing your name called. So in my opinion, the GMs are doing what they're supposed to do. And now it does give you somewhat of an advantage because you get into a situation where as a UD, as an undrafted free agent, you can get to contract negotiations a little bit in a shorter period of time. So if Shaq comes out, proves himself in New Orleans, and they do what they're supposed to do, then he gets an opportunity to excel into a realm in terms of the pay piece earlier. But all this hemming and hawing about, we should have more players drafted, it doesn't matter. It's not even financially feasible. Why would I pay the group that I don't really invest in the attention and give them draft choices when I got a free minor league running for me in the SEC and in the Big Ten, and just keep them happy. Do the favor deals for whoever you're doing them for, and you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. So I don't look at it as a slight. I just look at it as this is business. These are billion-dollar corporations that operate as such.
And you are absolutely right, Kelvin.
Yes,
we
sir.
don't have an HBCU problem. We have a non-power 5 problem. So let me break that down. Of the 260 players who were picked, 216 of them came from the Power 5 conferences. You're a numbers man just like me. What does that equate to? 83%.
Right.
83% came from a Power 5 conference. So we can hem and haw all we want to about HBCU players. It's not about the HBCUs, just like you stated. It's about these GMs going where the owners feel comfortable. The owners playing to a certain constituents. Those owners and those constituents, they want to see the Alabamas. They want to see the Georgias. They want to see the Michigans. Those are the names that they want to see. Yes, we know the Middle Tennessee States, the Eastern Washingtons, the Coastal Carolinas, the Florida A&Ms, the Jackson States. Those are the meat, the bread and the butter of these NFL rosters. But they're going to get their opportunity. And iron sharpens iron. If you're good enough, you're going to get picked up. You may not get picked up by that team. Most of those people who got drafted aren't going to make the team any doggone way, Kelvin. The only people we know going to make the team is that first round pick.
Right.
90% of them second round picks are going to make it. But if you a day 3 draft pick, your shot is just as good as a doggone UDFA player. So it is what it is. We can complain all we want to, but it goes beyond HBCU. This is not HBCU bias. This is just bias against non-Power 5s.
Well, and also too, and if you look at it just from a strategic alignment, if you think about Tony Romo, Cooper Kupp, Steve McNair, they all have something in common.
Joe Flacco.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, FCS guys made a tremendous, impact in the league. Cowboys, LA Rams, Tennessee Titans, and so forth. So you can kind of just really just encompass it to the fact of why wouldn't I just make sure that the Bama name or the Power 5 name rings high, keep the recruiting there, make my NFL recruiting easier when I go and drop in at Bama on, for spring game and for a game. It just goes in. So until there's a continuity piece around why would we even divulge to invest in drafting those kids, that is something that needs to be really, really studied. And these are individualized corporations, so that's the reason why when you really study it, there are only certain guys that deal with these players anyway, but they deal with them from an economic standpoint. So if you were to go down and start looking at these payrolls, these rosters, and what these owners spend, some of it could actually come out in the wash, and you could actually see, I think a kid's got a better chance of making the Bengals because because their owner is not going to spend any money because he's going to tell you I don't have it, and then he's going to get the best bang for his buck. So, with that being said, I just think that it's a Neil conversation with me, just because we think with our emotions so much in the HBCU space. It's always emotional, which we have to stop being like that. Get it out of your head. I believe, on that same token, I believe that Jackson State fans are going to come up and show out this season because there's nothing more they want to do than prove everybody wrong. And prove them wrong, prove the fact that this is what's going to happen. This is how this is going to be. And they want to prove the fact that we wouldn't just come in just because he was here. So you're going to see that same type of energy down there. Whether they get the same product, I don't know. We're going to have to see.
I think you're 100% correct on that. Hey, my brother, I'll tell you what we're getting ready to do. We're getting ready to go ahead. We're getting ready to take a break. I see our next guest is sitting in the back room. Kelvin, it's time for us to talk some softball, man.
Okay. Softball's always good.
Softball is always good. We've got the SWAC tournament coming up this weekend, but on the Division II level, we've had a couple of champions crowned this past week, and we've got the head coach of one of those champions with us right here. So stay tuned, find out who that coach is. You are watching the BCSN SportsWrap. Kelvin Carter in for Brian. This is AD. We'll be right back.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN SportsWrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN SportsWrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Look at here, look at here, look at here. Look who we have joining us here, Kelvin.
Yes, Coach Mike Ellison.
Mike,
How you doing, Coach?
Coach Mike Ellis. Coach, I need you to unmute your microphone if you could for me. And when you unmute it, I want to hear you say the champ is here. Can't hear you, Coach. Still got you on mute. There we go.
Coach is still muted.
Still muted, Coach.
I don't know why it keeps going.
There we go. Keeps going to mute.
How about now?
Yes, sir.
I hear you,
We can hear you well.
All right. Good evening. How are you gentlemen tonight?
We
Doing
doing
well,
fine,
Coach. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, Coach Mike Ellis, the champ is here. How does it feel? About 72 hours later now?
Son. It's still a little surreal. Blessed more than I could ever imagine to be in the opportunity to have the opportunity to coach these young ladies and be at the Edwards University. It's just been an absolutely incredible ride and incredible experience, and to do what we did, pretty amazing, pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah,
Sure.
yes it was, and I was there for all of it. I think I wound up calling all 4 of you guys' game. I know I did 3. I had to go back and check and see if I happened to do all 4. Give you a little bit of background on Mike Ellis.
I'm sorry, I'm on my computer with a little bit of a delay, I guess.
All right. This is his second season with the Edward Waters Tigers. His first as head coach. He has been a pitching coach and instructor since 1990 for several middle and high school teams around Northeast Florida. He is the founder and creator of Pure Power Pitching. He has instructed over 2,000 different athletes, several which have gone on.
AD, it's Ellison with an O-N at the
Ellison. All right, I apologize about that, Coach. Coach Ellison has instructed over 2,000 different players, several of which have gone on to play in Division I and professional softball. And what I want to get into, Coach, it's been a whirlwind, probably 6 months for you. You've kind of gone from seat 3 to seat 2 to seat 1, all within a 6-month ride. So just kind of tell us about the ride from coming in, starting the preseason as the pitching coach, to being, do they still have the interim tag on your name, or have they removed that yet?
Yeah.
Looks like we're having a little bit of audio difficulty.
That's a question you'd have to ask the AD. You'd have to ask Dr. Rich that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going on my computer. It's a little dragging, I think it is. I do have an iPad that may be a little bit more convenient for what we're trying to do.
I'll tell you what, Coach. Want to go ahead and take a break while you log in on your iPad?
I'm sorry. Just a second.
Let's do this. Let's take a break, Coach, while you try to log in on your iPad.
Yes, sir. That'd be good.
And we'll be all right. You're watching BCSN SportsWrap. Kelvin, AD, we'll be right back.
Time to call a credit repair company to fix my credit. Hold the phone, man. You can do it yourself with Credit Versio. That's way too hard. Call the credit repair company. Most credit repair companies only work on 1 or 2 accounts at a time, making it slow and expensive. You won't figure that out for months. Ignore him. Credit Versio's brilliant software scans all 3 credit bureaus, finds the accounts that are hurting your score, and guides you through the entire process. Anyone can do it. Let's fast forward and see the results. Wow, I fixed my own credit and saved hundreds. You can do this. Visit creditversio.com.
T. Madden & Associates is a sophisticated and experienced law firm located in your neighborhood. We're turning injury to cash.
T. Madden & Associates obtained almost $2 million for my injury. They turned my injury to cash.
Now, we can't guarantee how much your injury is worth, but we've recovered millions for our clients.
Call T. Madden & Associates at 833-PAID-123. That's 833-PAID-123.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties. Through its programs, Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and parenting education coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
All right, we're back here on the BCSN SportsWrap. Kelvin Carter sitting in for Brian, AD, and Coach Mike Ellison. Mike.
Hey, sir. How are you tonight?
Oh, that's much better than we were.
Much better. I'm sorry. My laptop is on the road. I had to borrow an old laptop, and it obviously was, like me, very old.
Yeah. I don't know if you caught the question that I asked you before we had to go into that commercial break, but we were just talking about the whirlwind that you've kind of been on. You know, you started pretty much in chair 3 in the off season, moved over to chair 2. Now you're at chair 1 with the interim tag. So having gone from the pitching coach, assistant coach, and now the interim head coach. So just kind of take us through this like 6-month ride that you have been on to get to this portion of your journey.
Well, you know, it has been kind of crazy. When Coach Daly hired me a couple years ago as the assistant coach, it was just a blessing from God. He opened up a door for me that I was able to walk in at the time I was able to walk in, and then as we started this season, last year we did it with kind of just 2 pitchers and 2 catchers. And one of my main goals was to go out and recruit some pitchers and catchers, which we did, knowing that we were going into this SEAC conference and would be playing 3-game series. We knew we needed more than just a couple pitchers and a couple catchers. So did a good job recruiting there. And then we got the girls on campus, started working them out, going through some drills, going through some training, getting them ready to go. And it was we kind of knew that Coach Daly was probably going to leave at the end of this season for some personal family issues that he needed to take care of back at his home state in Pennsylvania. And so as we kind of went through the thing, all of a sudden it became, got expedited, so to speak, to where he needed to be up there to start at his college in January to coach this season. So we found that out in November, kind of transferred some stuff over, responsibilities over to me and the other coach at the time. And then we went through the season. As the season began to progress, we had some things come up, and the other coach decided that he needed to resign. And so Dr. Rich asked me if I would carry the team through the end of the season. I said absolutely, would be honored to, and it would be a privilege. And so the main thing I told the girls, the same thing I tell the girls all the time, God has a plan and a purpose for every one of our lives. First thing I tell them in the beginning of August is that I'm a born-again Christian. I believe in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and that I think that he has a plan and purpose for every one of us. Like you said, 3 years ago, I was coaching middle school softball and started a pitching program multiple years ago that has been very successful in the Northeast Florida, Southeast Georgia area. And through that, I was able to get into Edward Waters, and it's been just an absolute blast since then. I'm looking forward to, like I told Dr. Rich, I said, God will provide a way. God will provide a means. If this is what I'm meant to be, then this is where I will be. I told the girls the same thing. I don't know what my future holds, but I know who holds the future. And if he wants me to be your head coach, then that's where I'll be.
Kelvin, you got anything for Coach Ellison?
Well, other than just, congratulations, Coach. I know it takes diligent work, especially coming through that, K-12 component and working your way into the university piece. What's the next year's travel schedule look like, in terms of jumping into this new conference and, like you said, going from 2 catchers, 2 pitchers to, strengthening the roster. And for those that don't know, can you give a little insight into the structure around how you're actually able to construct the roster under, financial deficit per se, which is a little bit different than a basketball team or a football team?
Yeah, it's, Dr. Faison, our president, wants us to try to maintain a roster number between 20 and 25, which it creates a little bit of a problem for a little bit of issues with the girls, because we know we have a deep roster and, there's only 9 spots on the field. I told the girls back in August that, hey, how many of you guys, by a show of hands, how many of you were the best player on your high school team or best player on your travel ball team? And 19 hands went up in the room out of 24. And so, look, there's only 9 spots. So we're building some depth. We had a lot of transfers in this year. We got the 2023 class. We pretty much signed and solidified that for the most part. We got one girl that decommitted for various other reasons, but had nothing to do with the changeover in the coaching. But she chose to go to another university. But as far as our travel plans, it's kind of hard for me to say at this point. I've reached out to a few people, or a few coaches have reached out to me, but not being until that interim tag is removed or until I am solidified as the head coach, it's kind of hard for me to plan a schedule for next year if I'm not going to be the head coach. I'd say I'm probably 98% sure that I will be asked to retain the position, which I would love to do. So traveling was tough this year. Oh my gosh, it was. We were on the road 5 straight weekends. We were supposed to have a break in there, but the weather. We were supposed to play Albany after we came back from Jasper, and we'd gone to Fort Valley, and then we had supposed to play Albany at home. Weather was not conducive to that, so talking with the SEAC and talking with Coach Jason up there at Albany State, we transferred that game up there to his place, and then we had to go back-to-back weekends to South Carolina. So 5 straight weekends on the road took a toll on a lot of people. A lot of the girls were tired. We need that break kind of in between. We got the Easter weekend off and kind of rejuvenated some things, and we're able to come back and ready to go. So travel next year, we're trying to get us some games with. I talked with the coach Hanover at Spring Hill, see if we could, even aside from the crossover, if we could possibly play them in a series game. We'd like to be able to play in a couple of tournaments now that we're officially in that NCAA D2 category as opposed to NAIA. I think that'll open up some opportunities for us to play in some tournaments.
Speaking of Spring Hill, Coach, a classic matchup between Edward Waters and Spring Hill. And you were in DC, Kelvin, so I know you didn't get the opportunity to catch it. For those who did not get a chance to catch that game, the game was scoreless through 11 innings.
Yep.
Let me repeat that. Scoreless through 11 innings. And I'm going off the top of my head. I do not have the stat sheet in front of me. But I believe at that point in time, I think the 2 teams had combined for possibly 8 hits. One team had 5, one team had 3 going into the 12th inning.
Yes, sir.
Then Edward Waters opened it up, but let's put it in perspective. Edward Waters had a hit or 2, but there was also a few miscues along the way by Spring Hill that opened it up. And anybody who knows good softball from great softball will tell you. The difference between a good softball team and a great softball team is the team that does not make mistakes and the team that takes advantage of the mistakes.
Correct.
Edward Waters finally was able to take advantage of a Spring Hill mistake because neither one of these teams were able to take advantage of each other's mistakes at that point in time. Just go through that marathon that you were going through mentally and physically in that game. The two games in one.
Yeah, it was. I told the girls after that game finished, we were out there in the outfield, and I made a comment to them. I said, "This is a game that you will remember for the rest of your lives, and people will talk about it for the rest of theirs." It was absolutely one of the most incredible games that I've been a part of ever. The fact of trying to figure out a way on third base to score runs and figure out a way in the dugout to keep them from scoring runs and getting on base, calling pitches. Both pitchers were absolutely feast on the mounds to be able to go through that game and just, even though we had depth in pitching, we were in no position, or I was in no position to make a decision to pull JoJo, who ended up actually being the tournament MVP for the whole tournament. I was not going to pull her in that situation. She was, as you said, scattering hits. We were getting 3 up, 3 down. They were getting 3 up and 3 down. We'd get a base runner and kind of get it over there to second base, and we couldn't do anything with it. And then they would do the same thing. We were able to just kind of make some plays. And Coach Hannah and that group over there, I told her afterwards, I said, that was a classic. That was absolute. Nobody should have lost that game in theory. And I made this comment, and I still stand by it. That should have been the championship game. That's what a championship game is like. And as I'd walk by their dugout, from the first base dugout to the third base dugout, I'd walk by there. I said, man, isn't this great? Isn't this great? This is what 2 number 1 seeds are supposed to do right here. This is what softball at this level is all about.
Yeah. And one thing that we noted on the broadcast, whoever lost that game, we figured Tuskegee was going to beat them, because whoever lost that game was going to be so emotionally spent, along with the physical that it takes to play a 12-inning softball game. Yeah, we know with softball, pitching is not as big of a concern in softball as it is in baseball, but that was still 150 pitches between those 2 pitches. So. Absolutely.
We came back that night. A bunch of the players, after we went out to eat, a bunch of the players came back to the game to watch Spring Hill and Tuskegee just to see who we were going to be playing the next day in the championship. And we were sitting there, and I said, man, just imagine if we were out there right now. I couldn't even imagine being out there right now. But yeah, that was one for the ages. That was absolutely an incredible ball game, and it's unfortunate that somebody had to lose, and nobody really took the game. It just became a situation of who was going to outlast the other player, and we were able to make a couple plays here and there, and they made a couple miscues, as you said, and we took advantage of those, and that's what you have to do. And we were fortunate enough to come out on the winning end of that, which saved us a lot going into the Wednesday's game against Tuskegee, or Thursday's game against Tuskegee.
Kelvin?
Well, you know what? Big time congrats, and I look forward to seeing what's going to go on in the next season. As we look at all of our programs across the country and just see, how putting a great coach with great talent can produce some success for the university, and hopefully this type of championship play can be replicated across your athletic program as a whole, over to baseball, basketball, football. So congratulations again, and for being a really good beacon of light for your university.
Thank you, Mr. Kelvin. Appreciate it.
All right. Want to talk about your championship game?
Yes, sir.
You guys played Tuskegee 2 times in the tournament. You beat Tuskegee, ironically, by the same score both times in the tournament, that being by a score of 8-4. 2 different ways that you got your 8, but for you to let me slow down. Let me set the dynamics for those who do not follow SIAC softball. Tuskegee, in the last decade, has appeared in 6 SIAC championships. Let's put the asterisk on that. SIAC did not play softball in 2 of those 10 years that I'm talking about. So 6 of the last 8 competitive seasons, Tuskegee has appeared in the championship game. They've won now 4 of those 6. At that time, it coming in, it was 5 of the 9 that they had won. So the power in the SIAC has been in Tuskegee. When it has not been in Tuskegee, it has stayed in the West with Spring Hill.
Correct.
Albany State sprinkled 1 in. Claflin sprinkled 1 in. Who's no longer even in the conference.
Which we beat Claflin in the crossover 1-0.
Yeah. But everybody else for the last decade has come from the West. So talk about beating the powers in the SIAC. And someone asked this question of me, is there now a shift in SIAC softball? I know what your answer, what you want your answer to be, but is this the start of a shift in SIAC softball?
Well, I don't think there's a shift. I wouldn't call it a shift. I think there is a couple of teams that are now as competitive as Tuskegee has and Spring Hill has been. I don't think it's a shift that the West is now weaker than the East or the East is stronger than the West. I don't think it's that dynamic. I think it's the dynamic of that when you get coaches in that know championship softball and how to create a championship atmosphere and create girls that can buy into that championship atmosphere. I think that's what the dynamic is that allows the teams to be competitive. And you know as good as I do, Mr. AD, you know that, hey, winning breeds recruiting. I mean, you win, I mean, they're going to come. They'll come. Same thing in football when, Alabama, Georgia, those powerhouses, Florida back in the day, Oklahoma, as you start having winning programs and building winning programs and playing for championship, it's easy to recruit. It's easy to go out there and knock on a door and say, hey, look, we're competing for a championship every year. We're competing for a national championship. We're competing for a conference championship. Those are the type of things that makes it easy to recruit. Well, Tuskegee has had that benefit for so many years. And so that's why they've been, I won't say it's a switch over. It's not a switch over. It's not a shift in power. I think it's just a couple other teams from the East are now understanding and able to buy into that mantra of, hey, we're going to compete and we need you to do it. And so I think that's what more of than anything. But that game, you're talking about the two games, the similarities too. If you think about the similarities of those games, in both games, we were the visiting team. Tuskegee got us up.
They jumped up on y'all both games, if I remember.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say.
They scored first.
Jump up.
They scored first.
Don't give them up. All right, so they took the lead. The first game we had, they went up 1-0 in the first game. I think it was the third, maybe fourth inning. Brooke Rice, our catcher, came up and hit a blast over the right field fence.
Tied it up.
Tied the game up. And then it's like I went over there and I said, hey, they're not going to give it to us. This is a game. This is right where we want to be. We're 0-0. We're right where we want to be. So now let's go. Let's just go play Everwater softball. Let's just go do what we do. We're just going to keep plugging away. We're going to be aggressive on the base pass. We're going to, somebody's going to make a mistake and we're going to capitalize on it. Second game, we ended up scoring in the first game. We ended up scoring a couple runs here, and then they scored one to make it 5-4, 5-3, whatever it was, or 6-4, whatever it was. And then we ended up scoring a couple more runs at the end of the game. Then we came up in the second game. They scored 2 in the first inning on an error. We made an error on a bunt. Our pitcher got a little aggressive and threw a ball away, and they scored a couple runs in that first inning. And then, it's like the third inning down the road. Kyla Gardner comes up, our right fielder, who was also Brooke Rice was also on one of the all-conference team, and then Kyla Gardner was also on the all-conference team. Came up or all-tournament team, I should say. She was all-conference, but she was also all-tournament. Came up and hit a 2-run shot to tie the game back up, and here we go. Hey, we're right where we want to be. We've got them right where we want to be. We're in the middle of a game. We're tied up. It's the fourth inning. Hey, we can win this thing. Let's just go keep plugging away, keep doing our things. We're going to keep them off the bases. We're going to keep throwing leather at them. And God smiled on us, and we were able to come away with a couple of victories.
Yeah. So tell me, what was the first thing Perez said to you when you got back to Duval?
Actually, I haven't seen him. He called us. I haven't seen him. He called us. We were actually in the lobby of the hotel and packing up all our stuff. I was collecting all the uniforms, and he called Josh and the girl. So he wanted to be on a conference call with everybody. So he just got in and goes just like, congratulations, that's awesome. You guys are amazing. Can't wait to get back. I'm so excited for the future of this program. And Coach Ellison, you did an amazing job and blah, 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 blah. And so it was, It was pretty nice to have Dr. Rich, the athletic director. She actually called me on the phone. Actually, she was on Josh's phone because my daughter, who is a junior at Georgia Southern, called me on my phone to congratulate me. And talking with her, and then Josh just handed me a phone. I was like, I'm on the phone with my daughter. Can I call you right back? My wife happened to be there. So it was a family affair for us. We were able to really enjoy the opportunity to be together. And but Dr. Rich she sent me a text message. She said, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of how you took this program, took the reins of this program, and just fought through everything that the girls had gone through. Because it was hard for the girls. I mean, that's a hard thing for that kind of change to take place in that short period of time. And, girls, they're unlike guys. Guys can kind of just brush stuff off like that and move on. Girls are a little bit more emotionally attached sometimes. But they told me from Jump Street, Coach Mike, we love you. We got your back. We believe in what you're doing. We believe in you. We know we're going to do this. We're going to do this. And to go 13-0 as a head coach in Division II softball is nothing I did. It's the girls believing in the system and believing in the process. And they'll tell you, she said, they'll tell you, I always talk about, hey, it's a process. It's a process. Just trust the process. Just trust what we're doing. Believe in what we're doing. If you buy into it and believe in it wholeheartedly, we'll be rewarded. We keep doing the right things, God will smile on us. And that's kind of pretty much what happened.
Got any last thing you want to get in there, Kelvin? You're muted.
I know it's going to be a great recruiting season for you, and just keep up the good work, and looking forward to having the same conversation with the champion next year.
Hey, from your mouth to God's ears, brother.
Hold up. I'm glad you said champion, Kelvin. Coach, every week on the Black College Sports Network on the BCSN SportsWrap, we do our baseball and softball top 5 rankings.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm going to begin the disclaimer. This is a ranking. This is not a poll where humans vote. This is an algorithm that we put together. We punch in the numbers. Yes, I'm one of the nerds who came up with the formula. I'll go ahead and say that. But we punch in the numbers. We take the wins. We take the losses. We take the conference wins. We take the conference losses. We look at your trend. We look at your strength of schedule and a couple of other things. I can't tell you the whole sauce.
Right.
Mama made good spaghetti sauce, but only thing you knew in there, it was tomatoes. You didn't know everything else that she put in there. So I can't tell you the whole sauce.
Right.
But we run a bunch of numbers. So if you would, I want to go ahead and do the top 5 rankings.
Okay, let's go. E-W,
All right. Just kind of going through it quickly. Our in the hunt teams are Albany State. Oops, you weren't supposed to see that slide yet.
That's all right, man.
Albany State, Miles, Lane, Jarvis Christian, and Winston-Salem. Number 5 team coming in 36-17, 15-12 is Stillman. Stillman, member of the Southern States Athletic Conference. They are the only NAIA team represented in our top 5. Our number 4 team, who you said you beat, was Claflin, 32-12, 18-4, 52 points. The number 3 team is the team who you defeated in the championship game, who was previously our number 2 team, that being, for disclosure, Tuskegee alum. The Tuskegee Golden Tigers, 25-19, they're 18-6. Bowie State, 35-14, 18-3. And the reason that we are going to crown you while you are here today, because we ran the numbers. There is no way Bowie State or Tuskegee, who are our number 2 and our number 3 teams, will be able to mathematically catch you with our formula. So we figured while you were here, we go ahead and crown you. Ever was the only 40-win softball team in HBCU land.
Let's go, man.
And also the only team with, when you add in the regular season plus their tournament, 20 conference wins with a total of 23-3. That 23-3 represents your regular season and your 4-0 in conference.
Yes, sir.
So without further ado,
Let's go, man. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. But hey, the only thing I want you to change now, going into next year, we need to change that EWU, not EWC. You got the old.
That's the old logo.
That's the old logo. Yeah,
that's
man.
The old logo.
Now you're talking about one thing that Dr. Rich and Dr. Faison always say. Make sure you get that changed anytime that pops up. So look, we Division II now, baby. We ain't NAIA. We're Division II, so we got to have that university tag.
There you go. Well, when it goes out officially on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and everything else, I'll make sure that I switch the logo out for you.
I appreciate that. I know that Dr. Rich and Prez will definitely like that.
And I also want to say shout out to your sports information director, Joshua Jackson, for us.
Joshua's
this interview. He and I have been texting back and forth for the last couple of days, pulling everything up. And just to let you know how new Coach Ellison is to this position, he doesn't even have a bio on the website yet. No offense to Josh, because I've done it. I know how hard it is sometimes because you're the midst of season just to get him the information, because you're concentrating on wins and losses and then to get the information. So I want to thank Josh for giving me your bio information this afternoon.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah, Josh is a one-man wrecking crew, man. He does it all.
Yes, sir. Well, the champ is here.
Thank you so much, man. We appreciate it.
Any last words, Coach?
Let's get some rings, baby. Hey, God bless you guys for doing this, man. I absolutely, it's an honor and it's a privilege to be on your show. It's an honor and a privilege to be at the university that I'm at Edward Waters, and I'm looking forward to a great future for these girls, a great future for Edward Waters softball and athletic program as a whole.
All right, now. Well, with that, we were going to take a break right here on the BCSN SportsWrap. Coming back after the break, I believe we're going to have Dr. Kenyatta Cavil and Mo Carter. We're going to come in. We're going to get into a good roundtable discussion along with Kelvin Carter and myself. Coach Ellison, thank you. Love you guys out there in Duval.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you, brother.
All right, then. You're watching the BCSN SportsWrap. Kelvin sitting in for Brian. Zadie, we'll be right back.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU Sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Well, we just had the champ. Now the doc is here. The good doctor, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, joining
Man, it's good to
Kelvin
be
Carter.
on with you, Kelvin.
Joining Kelvin Carter and AD Drew here on the BCSN SportsWrap. Mo Carter should be joining us in just a few moments. Before we get into this roundtable discussion, want to give a few shout outs to some people. Walter Harley joined us here. Tamara T, hello. Jeremiah Clark. Brian on the road heading back to Orlando after calling a great championship game there today, where Spring Hill defeated Savannah State in the SIAC championship game. I see Edwards here. Chuck Hunt, always here, Dr. Cavil. Chuck Hunt is always there.
Always
David Garner.
right. Shout out to Chuck Hunt.
Yeah. David Garner is in the house. Who else do we have here? Edwin Moore. Appreciate you, Edwin Moore. Tamara T says, congratulations, E-Dub. Edwin Moore says, congratulations to the coach of Edward Waters. Here you go, Doc. Here's the comment of the day. Must be an Edward Waters player. Ring me. Ring me. Shout out to HBCU Band Talk also for joining us here on the BCSN SportsWrap. Fellas, got a lot going on. Got a lot of baseball and softball going on this over the next couple of weeks. Looks like SWAC softball is now set after today's set of games. I'm going to pull that up in just a moment so we can talk about the SWAC softball pairings. Also, CIAA crowned the champ. Bowie State had to go to the IF game, but Bowie State defeated Claflin in the IF game today to be crowned as the CIAA softball champions. Dr. Cavil, I know you were there watching because you were texting me while we were watching. Just any comments on the Division II softball tournaments over the weekend?
There's a lot of great action. I mean, those women fought hard in terms of what they were able to do. The top teams rose to the top. Cream rises to the top, and they showed out in terms of the tournament. So you had classic matchups with the best teams involved in terms of what took place in those tournaments. And ultimately, you got to give shout out to the Bowie State Bulldogs, CIAA getting it done. And then Edward Waters University in terms of the Tigers getting it done. Great interview with the coach there. And imagine Edward Waters, what they had to do to stay within the moment, stay disciplined, stay focused, has to be something that we acknowledge in terms of those changeovers that took place and not allow it to deter them from their ultimate goal, which is being champions of the SIC. And then you add on the fact that they were moving from NAIA to NCAA Division II as a member of the SIAC. To do that in your first year, similar to what we've seen in a lot of ways with Dillard starting up their baseball program on the baseball side, that's significant feats to have teams be able to get it done. So kudos to all those champions that are out there.
Yeah. And speaking of Edward Waters in transition from NAIA to Division II, brings up the first topic that I wanted to get into in this roundtable. And that is the fact that, and everybody may not be aware of this, Edward Waters will not be the SIAC representative for the Division II tournament. The representative will be the runner-up, which were the Tuskegee Golden Tigers. So with that, they are not allowed to compete because they are not full members of Division II, even though they are a full member of the SIAC conference at this point. So my question to you fellas is, should a team who cannot go on to represent you in the national tournament, or whatever level you are, compete in your conference tournament? And let's be real, everybody. No one, when Edward Waters entered, expected Edward Waters to be in this position this fast. I don't even think Edward Waters expected themselves to be in this position this fast. So congratulations to them for getting themselves into this position and creating a little bit of controversy. I don't know which one of you gentlemen want to tackle that question first.
I'll jump in there. It seems like Kelvin wants to pause and be a gentleman and allow me to do my thing. So I appreciate that, brother. With that being said, first, let me give a little bit of a history. You know, I always like to share the historical perspectives of this. We've seen this, and I think one of the first programs that did this, oddly enough, was the HBCU conference, which was the SWAC. And it was based on APR components versus transitioning up from Division II to Division I FCS would be the case in that scenario. And there were some questions of whether the APR team should be in the tournament. Well, the presidents pushed and asked questions and said, well, how is this going to affect us financially? And for the SWAC, a lot of people were concerned that if you don't have teams in there, obviously, how that affect the tournament financially. And it wasn't so much in terms of attendance like people might think, but it was about the contract that was signed with the city that required a number of teams to be in quote-unquote hotels, right, spending dollars, or they may have kind of reneged on the contract in some way. So they went back and kind of pushed the issue, and where it became really a old school type question is at one time, if your team that wasn't eligible or teams that were eligible didn't win the tournament and a non-eligible team won it, you would lose your bid. And that made it pretty much easy in regards to being like, particularly at the Division I level, because you have a lot of financial stake, you know, millions of dollars for making that decision. So you wouldn't see it, right? Well, they changed the rule. And the rule said the school could actually not only select whether they're going to do the regular season or the postseason, which a lot of schools done, and obviously the last one to do that was the Ivy League, because they didn't have a tournament up to 4 or 5 years ago. And they would just send a regular season. And so at that point, they said, well, you can determine whether you're going to send your regular season or your tournament champion. They updated the rule and said, well, the conference can designate a guideline in terms of whoever they're going to select to participate in the tournament. And what that ultimately did for the SWAC is they said if a team that won the tournament that was not eligible, the next team that was eligible would actually go in their place, which is similar.
The tournament runner-up.
Yeah, the runner-up, and similar to what you see in this case. You had this on the Division I level a couple of years ago where a team won the Atlantic Sun, Binghamton, or something like that. They were just moving up for Division II, so they weren't eligible, just like you seeing going from NIA Division II, similarly. And so the runner-up made the tournament. You actually saw that this year when the team that Texas Southern played that ultimately went deep and had the upset of the number 16 seed. They actually did not win the tournament. The team that won the tournament was not eligible, so they went in place because they would have runner-up. So, no, I don't have a problem with it because of the rule change. I know why it could be controversial because not too long ago, you would basically give up your bid. And so at the Division I level, it's not a problem for me. I know at the Division II level, rules are slightly different, but no, I don't have a problem with it because of all that.
Kelvin, want you to dive in on that. And if you would, Kelvin, kind of take a little bit more of a fan's perspective, you know, because a lot of fans are chattering about Edward Waters shouldn't have even been there. So if you would, Kelvin, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just think that the average fan really doesn't understand the mechanics of why you have to wait a year anyway. So like when you make those transitions, I think that's similar to what we got going on here in St. Louis with Lindenwood's basketball team going from Division II up to Division or FCS or Division I AA, but it's Division I basketball. And they played well in the OVC tournament. However, all parties know that it'll be X number of years before they can compete. And I think, if in a fan's opinion, I would think that it was giving a team an opportunity to grow their rosters, get prepared for this, maybe upgrade facilities. But in Lindenwood's case, they came to the table with all those things already intact, and now they have to just sit in that space with the rules of when you can compete if you win a championship. So it gives you time to build a roster, see if you're going to keep coaches. So, but your average fan has no idea about how the decision was made. You know, if I had to look into it deeply, it may be that we have this format laid out with based on these teams, and you made your application to go, and everybody understands it. I don't hear too much pushback from those that are involved, because that window of time, which is either a year or 2 years, gives you an opportunity to get your footing together for that. And hence the reason why I don't think with our football programs making some of those jumps is just something that's talked about often. I think, you dominate where you are, and then you look at Edward Waters, assume they made the jump and they dominated, but it's their opportunity, they do it 2 years in a row.
You had a similar framework. From the fans' perspective, I guess I can see it, but, fans are short for fanatics, so it doesn't mean that it has to make sense. As Kelvin is alluding to, they don't have all the information, and I think many of those same fans were excited about Edward Waters coming to the conference, but what kind of relationship are you setting up for a new conference member if you're not being best stewards in terms of sharing? It's like inviting guests to your house and saying they can't have a drink of water. Now, you might not allow them to get the glass, and you probably be polite to go get the glass, but it's like, you invite me over to your house and you bring out all food, pizza, but you're not gonna share the pizza with me. I mean, I don't get that framework. Part of being in the conference, being a good steward. Yes, you want to beat folks, but if they happen to have a team and they beat you, live with it. Let's spend some more money and support our teams to get them better. Or, if you need to, make tough calls and changes with your coaching to get better. But to try to win it because a technicality, to me, just sounds like fans that want to win at all costs, and they're just making excuses to the fact that they want to be able to get it done versus getting it done on the field or on the playing surface, the court, whatever it may be in the sport. This was similar to Howard when they joined the SWAC in women's soccer a couple of years ago. They were not eligible the first year to win the tournament because it was just a transition thing, and they won the tournament but couldn't go, so Prairie View went in their place. Next year, they won the tournament, and they went again. Following year, Prairie View finally got tired of getting their butts kicked, and they won the tournament outright and get it done. So, yeah, I get it as a fan, but at the end of the day, come on, fans. Let's not be fanatics. Let's be fantastic.
All right. Next question I got for you fellas is, it's tournament time. I'm looking at the format of some of our tournaments that we have. I'm gonna start off with the CIAA softball, because we know they don't play baseball anymore. The CIAA softball, regular season and postseason. In the regular season, outside of a crossover, everything is division. But when they come to the tournament, they don't take 4 from the South and 4 from the North. They take the best 8, the top 8 records. This year, when you look at the tournament field, it was 5-3 in favor of the South. 5 Southern teams, 3 Northern teams in the tournament. Is that the best representation of the CIAA? Yes, I know that those are the best teams record-wise, but all records aren't equal because everybody did not play the same level of competition. So just give me you guys' thoughts on that format there in the CIAA, where they just, irregardless of record, even though everybody didn't play everybody, and we're not talking about because of rainouts and things like that. We're just talking about how the schedule came from the conference office. Just kind of talk about your feelings on that. I'm gonna start with Kelvin on this one.
Well, seemingly to me, if that's the case, we make the argument in basketball when we talk about probably NCAA, not the NCAA, the NBA playoffs. Maybe they should go back, reshuffle, and go 1 through 16, regardless of whatever, and put together this playoff that would make a lot more sense. It would probably balance out. But looking at this scenario, one of two things are quite obvious. Either A, the conference itself, if they want to go with a single line ranking, then the schedule has to be reflective of it. However, when you look at the scheduling is probably based around proximity, travel budgets, and all these things that go into play. So it would probably be more, it would be fair in the divisional top four because you don't have the alignment or crossover per se in the way that the schedules are breaking out. So that I think that would be something I think if the ADs were to really look at it from a conference perspective and look at conference leadership and just in all fairness, just lay it out. I think it can be plainly seen, but obviously there must be a reasoning or rationale behind this way of ranking. I understand the rationale, but with the way the schedule is set up, it doesn't really support it.
Go ahead, Doc.
I like the way Kelvin broke it down. I think this is a question that can be debated a little more. But let me put this out there that I know people may or may not want to hear. There's no perfect system.
Are you serious?
There's no perfect system. And whatever system you go with, somebody is going to be upset and feel slighted. And so with that being said, I do still think there's some arguments about, whether you're going to take 4 and 4, even with the scheduling problem that you have, that everybody doesn't play everybody. But I think most of the time when you put it together, the best teams are going to find a way to play near the end of the tournament. And you get some teams every once in a while it gets hot, but that's kind of why you would want all the teams in there, because that's why you follow early to see if there happens to be upset. That's what gets your fandom going in regards to cheering for it. So in that format, I think it would be good if there was an explanation of why you're taking the top 8 teams in terms of records versus just taking the top 4 versus the other one. And I would like to hear that explanation of how it's set up that way. But I don't have major heartburn on either format. I just need to know so I'll be familiar, particularly from a media's perspective, so I'm giving out accurate information when I'm describing this. So I think that is one side that I would like to see, is that there's more communique coming out from the conference themselves about this is our scheduling format, this is what the AD's presidents voted for, and this is basically why they did it. I think some of that information would just be good in terms of providing information to fans as well as the media so they would get accurate information out.
Yeah, and keep in mind, just like Dr. Cavil just said, the athletic directors and or the president voted for this format. All the commissioner's office does is, all right, this is how you do it. We'll put the schedule together for you based on how you do it, or we're going to run the tournament based upon how you guys voted. All we're doing is carrying out your wishes. Before I ask this next question, we're going to bring in another person to our round table. And joining us from WZDX, person who I saw a lot of this past week calling some of those SIAC softball games, is our brother Mo Carter. He will be, as soon as he turns his camera on, he'll be joining us here on this conversation. So the next question that I have, we're staying with these tournaments and these tournament formats on these questions. Baseball. And this particularly was more baseball than softball with this. SIAC and SWAC baseball have an 8-team baseball tournament. You see a lot of conferences go with a 12-team tournament. A 6-team tournament instead of an 8-team tournament. Even the bigger guys like the SEC will go with 12 instead of all 16 teams. Why do they go with this instead of the perfect round numbers like we like to see in tournaments, 4, 8, 16, things like that? because that allows buys for your better teams, your top seeded teams. In theory, you have a better chance of getting your better team to the postseason. Also, it's a reward for those teams and their hard work throughout the season by them not having to spend that extra pitching by playing that extra game. So I'll throw this out there. Should we, in both the SWAC and the SIAC, consider a 6-team tournament, which would allow, in the SWAC, that would allow the East champ and the West champ to have a first round bye, and in the SIAC, your top 2 seeds to have a first round bye, and give them possibly better pitching matchups. Who wants to tackle that?
So a little perspective on this, and I always try to follow the money. If we're being very honest about it, I believe that some of those groups that when they put a bigger tournament out also understand that they have enough good product to go ahead and produce from a revenue perspective. So if you look at softball, baseball, these things that we have, if we haven't figured out a way to do an economic incubator with this, it's almost as if we need to really look at this and say, is it worth giving someone a bye or just go with 6 teams instead of 8, or a fewer amount of teams? Because as you go with fewer teams, it gets you there faster anyway. And so from an economic perspective, I love to see some of the numbers like from the SWAC or from the, some of the other conferences on, is there any money made, or is this all an outlay of capital to actually produce these tournaments? And how does it fall into the economic structure of these conferences? So from an economic standpoint, yes, you got somebody that could get hot, but I think if you actually looked at the SWAC top to bottom, there are years when it might be 8 deep. But if you really, I think if you go back into the depth schedules champions, I wonder how often you would find that one of the top 6 teams did not, win their tournament and advance on to the next round.
Dr. Cavil?
I appreciate what Kelvin said in terms of, again, really understanding the information behind the rationale for the decision and understanding the data to say whether this is even relevant in terms of concern people may have in terms of what the data speaks for. One of the things that I've always had this, because we've had, I think, even more concern about this during basketball tournaments over the years. People wanting the regular season champion versus the tournament champion because of upsets and sending your best team forward for the tournament, particularly at the Division I level. And at one time, I was kind of supportive of that. That it makes sense to send your best team, so let's just do the regular season champion. But as I started understanding more of the economic analysis that were taking place, one of the reasons for the tournament is for the economic benefit to the conference. And your teams can't get better if they don't have the economic financial means to get better. And the tournament has that opportunity to do that in terms of bidding for that. And then in addition to that, the question becomes, I heard an administrator talk about this that was fascinating when I first heard it, because I didn't think about it, I'll be honest. It's like we don't necessarily give our college athletes a great deal, obviously beyond the scholarships. They do get that, they earn that. But oftentimes the tournament is a celebration for them. It is part of a reward to participating as a conference. And at one time, you got to remember, they used to even have awards, banquets, and and things like that coming to tournament. A lot of tournaments, some have canceled that, and some continue to do it.
I know when I was in the SIAC, we had those.
Like, what are really the goals? And I always like to hear this question: what are the goals of the presidents and commissioners of the conference? Is it purely about generating money? Is it purely about competitive balance for the conference? Is it purely about celebrating your college athletes? Because once you get that information, it kind of helps us make a decision. So if it's just purely about money, then that's what's going to drive your decisions. That, hey, we get on television when we do a postseason. We have more tickets we can sell. We can sell our sponsors because now we have more inventory for the conference to sell and ask the sponsors for more money, which will therefore generate more money. If it's more about competitive balance, then you're simply looking about how do I send our best team to the tournament so they can represent us and how that looks. And that's going to determine, it makes it an easier way to answer your question in regards to, all right, this is what we're going to do and this is probably why. The third one is like, hey, we want to celebrate our athletes. And one of the ways we can do that is get as many teams as possible to participate in the tournament. And we allow whatever to take place because we're celebrating our college athletes to give them the opportunity to have postseason. Because most of them over their 4-year period are not going to have postseason opportunity. Because every year only one team wins the tournament. So if you take away the regular season and the postseason, that means you're limiting the ability of your college athletes to have a postseason experience. You notice many times you see in these tournaments, they had went for a while where they were trying to go to professional stadiums or professional arenas or these new arenas so they could really give these college athletes opportunity to go beyond what they would get traditionally during the season in terms of their home field, to give them an idea of what postseason participation is. So again, I think it really boils down to what the chancellor, the presidents, and byproduct by that is the commissioner. What are we trying to achieve? What are our strategic goals and plans? That helps us with our answer to that question. I know that's a long way to go around the framework, but I think it's important for us to really start understanding what are our goals and strategic plans, and it speaks to oftentimes why decisions are made. And again, maybe we can just do a better job of communicating.
Well, I think too, I'll interject back, AD, on this. I think what they did at the beginning of the season, when Alcorn went and played Wichita State, Grambling went out and played Colorado, I think those things have been put in place to add more to the experience, because that's a game you wouldn't get unless you won your conference tournament or you became won the outright conference championship. Also, the automatic bid of the regular season winner to the NIT is a big deal. So I think when you kind of, like you said, they're not communicating this, because in theory, I wonder how much traction you would gain if you had a SWAC versus the American Conference, the same way they have a Big 10, Big 12 challenge, and see how maybe some group that has like the competition level would vary enough to give our fans something, especially in those regions where they could get to those games. But that is a piece that you have to think about. What do we desire to give with the overall experience versus the economic piece? Because we get two bids. We get the NCAA bid, we get the NIT bid, and I think that's a big one in itself. That was an automatic bid piece out of that for the NIT, which I didn't really realize that it just came into place.
Yeah. All right, joining us now here on the round table is Bo Carter. Bo, I don't know if you heard the beginning of the question, but the discussion is revolving around terms, especially, and we're focusing in on baseball and softball right now, primarily baseball. Reducing the tournament from an 8-team tournament to a 6-team tournament, which would allow your top 2 teams as a reward for their play through the regular season to earn a first-round bye. Obviously, we know the benefits of that bye in baseball, where you get it saves on your pitching. There's one less game. You can better set your pitching matchups to for that championship game. Lord forbid you fall into the elimination bracket. That's where all this conversation started, Bo. So, your opinions on that?
Well, I've got to agree with Dr. Cavil just about the strategies that go into place that are made by the presidents and athletic directors, because, I mean, at the end of the day, they're the ones that are making the decisions as far as what's going to happen with the student athletes, and also they're going to make the decisions what's going to happen with the, with, I guess, on behalf of the coaches and whatnot. I mean, I like the idea of having the bye in the early stages, to help save on pitching and whatnot. But I really think you can't really have one of those universal ideas for everyone. Like what works here just won't work, there. I don't want to hop up to the big boys, but I'm gonna go ahead and use the SEC for example. I remember when the SEC tournament was a single elimination tourney, and this was like before the addition of Texas A&M and Missouri, and every once in a while you get a low seed that literally would make a run. I think there was a year LSU won it, I think 2010 or 11, and they were like the maybe the 10 or the 9 seed or something, and it was just kind of crazy, but it just got hot when they did. But I know like right now what they do is they kind of alternate some things. So like if you're a top 4 seed, you get like multiple buys, and then if you're like a first round, which were like your lowest 4 teams, that first day is single elimination, and if you win, you advance to the next day, and then that begins double elimination. Then you have winners bracket, losers bracket, and then by the time you get to Saturday, you're back to single elimination, and then they're crowned a champion on Sunday. I mean, that's what's worked for them for almost a decade now, but clearly that's not going to work for each and every one because clearly, for instance, the SWAC and the SIAC, they don't invite just about everybody to the tournament. They just don't, or whatever from there. So clearly, I think it's just more so like, what's the mindset? And then also, I think about this too. We've noticed how these tournaments have moved from different locations, through the years, especially on the HBCU level. I do have to wonder, like, okay, are these locations kind of banking on, all right, we only want the tournament for this day, this day, this day, and this day. If we go beyond this day or whatever, then, we kind of not so much breach a contract, but we have to maybe renegotiate something in this sense or whatever. So I do kind of wonder how that, stands. Now, granted, if you have weather or any type of other whatever delays, I can totally understand how that goes for it. But, clearly, I think the overall picture of it, though, is I think if you have like those complaints about whatever, I think the coaches need to speak up to their president and ADs for them to turn around and make those changes or make those decisions at the end of the day to express the voice on it. But in the meantime, you got what's in play and nobody's saying anything, then you just have to just go ahead and just play the ball game and to the best, gets the championship.
So
I like to add into what Mo said in terms of that format, just so people are educated about the process. And he's absolutely right. People need to voice their opinions in terms of all those involved. And that's usually what happens. When there's changes, I actually, as a consultant with a coach, actually wrote a change that they wanted. And they were fighting for this change. And I'll even let it out a little bit. People may have remembered when we used to play the 2 back-to-back 7-inning games on Saturday. And you play one on Sunday.
Yeah, correct.
Baseball, if you remember, that was pretty much what was the process. Well, you saw a lot of the more well-funded programs, or certainly the Power 5 conference that some people like to see it really in the NCAA calls the Autonomy 5. And Joshua Sims doesn't like to use the P5, so I, kind of cut it out of my vocabulary. But just so people have heard it before, I give that framework. But they were playing the Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and sometimes they even started doing a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That was for television purposes, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday format. I won't be surprised if they moved to a Saturday, Sunday, Monday to try to get more windows for television and how big it plays to the table as things move forward, particularly with the expansion of Oklahoma, Texas. But it's enough about them. The SWAC wanted to move to a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They were fighting for it and pushed it, and they always got it shot down either by the ADs, and I think one time they got it finally approved by the ADs, and the president's chancellors basically shot it down. As you said earlier, AD, the commissioner's office said, we're fine. Whatever y'all like to do, you tell us, and we'll make it happen, create the schedules, and flux it out, however y'all want to work it. Well, a couple of coaches came to me, and I said, well, one of the things is you need to talk the language of the president if you're making this square. So I said, will this reduce injuries? Because in my head, I thought, well, that might be an injury problem playing 270. They said, definitely. Can you show some data to kind of support that? Well, they put that together. So I wrote it up, and I said, one of the proposals is to move from a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because we believe it will reduce injuries. Here's some results that suggest that it would. because we're taxing our pitchers playing 7-inning games and the ball players playing 2 straight 7-inning games. So that there may be some up costs in terms of hotels, but you're going to get that money back because you're reducing your injuries that cost us a lot of money in terms of medical payouts, right? I said, another question, will this help get them back in time where you have them in class earlier? Will this help with your APR? There's a way that this setup will help APR. They said, I believe it will. And a couple of coaches looked at it and said, yeah, because now we can make students get out. They have more time when they're there to study. We have study sessions for them in the lab. So we wrote it up. Guess what happens when you speak the language of the ADs, the presidents, in terms of things that make sense? They supported it. Currently, you see the format is playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I give all that to example, as most said, is that you got to understand everybody's framework and you get a voice. Well, how things are updated in the conferences, it goes from the coaches. The coaches have goals that they want to achieve. So sometimes they'll have a proposal. They'll put it on the table where it goes to the SWAs, senior women administrators, particularly as a women's sport. It goes to the ADs, VPs of athletics. They ratify it and either support it or deny it. Then it goes up to the chancellors and then they vote on it. So a lot of people have say in regards to this process of the conference in terms of the governing structure of how they like to see the tournaments. That's why you see different sports with different tournament formats, because different coaches, different financial setups, I should say, are in play in regards to how it goes. So it goes through that process. And AD Drew, being a coach, you're familiar with that you have say, or you did have say, to somewhat in terms of what you'd like to see with the conference. At least you got to, especially as assistant, it gets smaller and smaller. But the point is that there are says, but the bigger thing is you got to know how you're making your recommendation and your ask in such a way that it plays to the guys that are women that are making decisions. And a lot of times we forget that. We just like to do what we want to do because it makes us feel good.
Right. So let me ask this as a follow-up, and we're going to get this out before and take this to break. You talked about those injuries and those other things, Dr. Cavil, and some of those reasons for expanding things. What about the expansion of the tournament? I'll think about this SIAC tournament where I just came from, and Bo was there with me also. Double headers, multiple double headers. Savannah State, who was in the championship game today, 6 games in 4 days. If they were going to win the tournament, that would have meant 7 games in 4 days. For those who can't do the math, that would have meant 3 double headers. At no time during the season do you play back to back to back double headers. So if we're not going to reduce the field of the tournament to get that back, can we extend the tournament out over more days to reduce injuries and help with other things? Because let's be real, most athletes on a doubleheader day aren't going to get too much studying done. On a day when you just have a single game, yes, you got your routine. You spend your 4, 5, 6 hours with baseball, but you can go back to the hotel, shower, and then still have plenty of time for meals and study hall. So do we look at, and even with the SWAC tournament, do we look at expanding the tournament out, adding another day or 2? Yes, we know it costs more money, but are we really thinking about the student athlete and the physical toll that multiple double headers would have to take, especially if you wind up in the elimination bracket? Anybody?
Well, I think you got to follow this backwards, though. K-12 educator in me says it's backwards by design. So if we are at this point and we're having this conversation, and this is just my opinion or thoughts around it from what I do know, we'd have to go back to see how it's funded. And somebody's working off of a budget somewhere, and they're attempting to get something done that they really they know it would probably be better to not have 3 double headers. Although I do go and watch the Cardinals play, which is a professional team, and they play double headers on Saturdays, with some type of scheduling glitch. But just in a vacuum, I think this is so financially driven that Dr. Cavil's point around what type of experience are we trying to provide, I think they're trying to get it in with the least amount of outlay of capital, because I've been to a HBCU baseball game, a SWAC game. I can't figure out why this isn't just a total money drain because we didn't pay for anything. We didn't. I went to Jackson State baseball game. I went to a game at Alcorn. There was no revenue generator at the game. I bet they didn't even offset the cost of the baseballs, or they paid for the officials, maybe. But it's a complete capital outlay, and I think baseball in the SWAC. It's a comment in here that's actually really, really true. That says, we must really find out if we want to play competitive baseball or just have, like this intrastate type of team system. And that's a very valid question from the comment.
Well, I can answer that. Competitive as defined by who? If you're talking about just competitive and playing, again, the autonomous 5, I think that's one thing. You're never going to have a competitive system against them. They're too far ahead in terms of the financial money they're making. So then the question is when we did the research, you want a Division I or Division II, I think sometimes people forget that there's a benefit cost analysis as well. It may be more benefit to be in Division I and your conference allegiance and participating there than it is to just look at it in terms of pure competition. So again, I think we have to really get an understanding of what is your desire. Because some of the same people that are talking about whether we want to be competitive don't donate a dime to their program. Don't donate a dime to BCSN in regards to wanting us to do all this talk. And I love them and support them. But some of us just talk with our mouths and not with our wallets in terms of financial, what we want to really do to support these systems. And the other part of me is like, I'm not supportive of just purely chasing whiteness as a privilege or a goal. I think the reason you pay sports is for the competition that is involved. And the conference is set up to have as much like programs together to create your competition. I know one thing, when I saw Edward Waters win that championship, everybody involved with that on that championship team felt very excited. And for me, it was a beautiful thing to see. And so I don't know if you're saying get rid of that because your whole goal is if we can't chase the whiteness and be equal or competitive in terms of our non-conference game, then why are we doing what we're doing? To me, at some point, that's just dangerous to always be looking at the glaze in the mirror and versus being receptive of what you have and be excited and supportive of what you have and to being the best of what you have. We have some folks that come from some very economic trodden situations. And I know a lot of people have made it out of that situation because their parents didn't always talk to their kids about looking about what somebody else had, but they told folks to be grateful for what they had and appreciate it and work supportive in understanding the value of what you have. I think sometimes we chase the value of what everybody else has versus the value of what we have intrinsic and support and celebrate that. So that's the only pushback I have on that. And I know the bigger picture of that, but I wanted us to at least consider a different perspective before we always act like everything we do is out there. But I do agree with Kelvin on this, is that we do need to find spaces where we can find ways to generate revenue. For like Southern does an excellent job in terms of their baseball program. They charge at the gate, but they started that process a while back about making sure that they had the money to put the gate out there. They keep on saying so they can charge.
Right.
I mean, Houston, Texas Southern They just financially get to the point where it looks like they're going to get a ballpark put up for them. But you got to remember, they played in a city park. You can't charge a city park.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead, Bo. Hold that thought, Kelvin. Let Bo get
things
his
are
in.
not necessarily equal. Are you selling your program? So I do agree that there are ways to generate money. Are you putting signs in the outfield in terms of your sponsors and things like that? But I do want us to be broader in terms of understanding the challenge, because every time we say we can do this, we forget it usually costs money to do that. And if you don't have the money from the first step, which is coming from us to give the investment to help our programs do what is necessarily to generate revenue, we're just talking in circles.
Go ahead, Bo. Then we're going to come back to you, Kelvin.
Sure thing, AD. So, Dr. Cavil, once again, just dropping the dimes of knowledge. The only thing I'm going to go ahead and just kind of add to that, it's more so when you kind of look at program to program to program and also conference to conference to conference, not only is the outlook of those conferences similar, but lots of times is different. And then the programs within those conferences, excuse me, will be the same. Sure, you have all these teams in the SWAC. You have all these teams in the MEAC, SIAC, CIAA. But the inner workings of those teams are just much different. Like Dr. Cavil said, I mean, I'm a Southern University alumnus. I remember Coach Roger Kadar when I was a kid, the way he was leading that program. And then when I was an undergrad, basically the same thing. But I guarantee you, some of the things that that Coach Kadar was doing in Baton Rouge, it probably was a little difficult for some other coaches within the conference to kind of do that or whatever, or move their program forward in the ways that he did. And I'm pretty sure that that's the same story in, other places here, there, and everywhere. But, if you want to kind of get on one accord as a conference, I feel like schools have to kind of get on one accord to be like, okay, well, look, if such and such is doing this and such is doing that, well, maybe we may need to try this, or maybe we may need to try that or whatever, to kind of just help from the inner workings of things before you kind of look at the overall outlook of a whole lot of stuff. And then, of course, from a conference standpoint, clearly there are always things that they want to seek improvement on or whatever, whether it's overall play or marketing of things. As AD mentioned, like this past week, I was in Albany with them for the softball tournament and day one of the baseball tournament. Thankfully, Albany State's baseball team, you're playing in their home territory, their home city or whatever. So you go to good crowds, whatever for them. For softball, I'll be honest with you, yeah, like I knew some people knew, and there were some folks that made the trips, but there also, I felt, was kind of maybe a lack from the marketing side and whatnot, because felt like, you could have had some more people down there in Albany, just when I kind of just go back and look into that. But clearly that's probably another conversation for another day. But my main topic I was kind of saying is that everybody talks about the looks of this and the workings of that, but there's a lot more inner workings for programs that have to kind of analyze each other to kind of gauge what things are going to be for one to be successful for another.
Go ahead, Kelvin.
Jeremiah Bo, he gonna tell me what not to talk about. You can start your own show.
It's all relevant, I believe, because I follow Alcorn baseball, Jackson State baseball, being there in town, and also being around the Jackson area. You get a chance to see a couple of other small schools that play at the old Smith-Wills Stadium. And one of the things that's really interesting is it's good baseball in conference. Like I can go to a SWAC game, man, sit back, get some sunflower seeds, get a beer or whatever. It's some pretty good baseball. But if you don't know baseball, you probably wouldn't know the best baseball teams in most states are JUCO baseball teams, because they're loaded with guys who just need to make one step to go somewhere. We're getting guys that, yes, they need some development, and like Alcorn probably about 8 years ago really got pretty good and made it and challenged Cal in the NCAA tournament. And Jackson State you can go into the record books on this. They put out pros. If you just go back to Oil Can Boyd, you got Kurt Ford with the St. Louis Cardinals. You got some talent that has came out in his sprinklings of it, and that was not to take away from the competitive nature in our box. But one thing that Mo said that I think is very, very true: if we wanted to do a really good project with our marketing kids or our biz ed kids in our schools, take whatever the energies around marketing and place it around that softball and that baseball component and drive it in a way. Maybe we plan alumni events and weekends around baseball because it's outside and it's free air and you can cook and barbecue and do all the things that you normally do. And those are the things that I'd like to see. You know, I know we have Alcorn has a collective now, and I think Prairie View has one, and we're really being aggressive. And I'll tell you what, the 1871 collective at Alcorn is we picked a softball player, a football player, and a baseball player as some of our lead faces. And that's what we intentionally did to drive, you know, that type of support around that. And we have alumni who continually, you know, invite you out to Vicksburg to watch the tennis team and around. And I think some people have inherent advantages that they don't take advantage of. So I would really love to see how Texas Southern baseball attendance and Jackson State's attendance look, because you're in Houston and you're in Jackson, Mississippi, and you're just not out in a area like a Lorman, Mississippi.
Yeah,
right,
in the park, the Grambling Southern rivalry games in Prairie View are always well attended.
Yeah. All right. With that, let's take a quick break. When we come back, Mo, I got a couple questions for you on this on the Magic City Classic, if you don't mind. Talk a little bit about this the contract and everything with the Magic City Classic. You're up there, you're covering it, so definitely got a lot of people with some questions about the Magic City Classic. So we're gonna talk some Magic City Classic, and then we're gonna pick up this show and get out of here. You're watching the BCSN SportsWrap. Kelvin sitting in for Brian, Dr. Cavil, Mo Carter. We'll be right back.
I was going to talk
Supermarket
about
sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never, ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN SportsWrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN SportsWrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Back here on the BCSN Sports Wrap, AD, Florida A&M University. Kelvin from Alcorn State University had to jump off. He had a previous commitment. Dr. Cavil, Prairie View, and Mo Carter, Southern University. We got a good old SWAC roundup going on up in here, fellas.
Make sure you make sure you throw in my Texas Southern. I don't.
Oh yeah, Texas. Currently working at Texas Southern. Where we gonna do?
I'm actually alum of both institutions.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna throw my SIAC up in here with Tuskegee and Mo Carter, who's a graduate of Southern University, used to work in Montgomery, Alabama, where he covered Alabama State University. Currently works in Huntsville, Alabama, where he covers Alabama A&M University. Well, I think we hit like 8 of the SWAC institutions right there. Oh, and let me throw this out. Kelvin from Jackson, Mississippi, where Jackson State is at. So we pretty much got the SWAC covered between the 4 of us.
Talking about baseball and softball, that's pretty good batting average.
That's pretty good batting average right there. You know, all you need is 300 to be in the Hall of Fame. We beyond the Hall of Fame with those numbers right there. But getting back to what I wanted to get into before we pick up this show and get out of here. Recently, we had some. I don't even know how to describe it. We had some negotiating, some posturing with the contracts with the Magic City Classic. Mo, you're there. You're in Huntsville. Obviously, you know the Alabama A&M perspective probably better than any of us, but you know the perspective from both sides since you're there in the state of Alabama. If you would, just kind of take us through what we've gone through since the end of football season with the Magic City Classic and what the outcome is, and you know, in your opinion, some of the good and bad with the outcome that we've had with the contract negotiations with the Magic City Classic.
All right. So at the end of the 2022 season, that current contract between the Alabama State Hornets, Alabama A&M Bulldogs, the city of Birmingham, and then entities like Alabama Sports Council, that contract to basically have that game played in not Mobile, so no, wrong part of the state, Birmingham.
wrong game.
yeah, wrong game, wrong game. But yeah, that to have the Magic City Class still be playing in Birmingham, well, that one had expired and they had not came to terms on an agreement to extend, which is something they had been doing the last few times prior to the game, because they would always announce it at the press conference. So maybe right around New Year's or right before New Year's, there was a verbal agreement between both teams and the city and the other entities. Well, following the verbal agreement, Alabama State went ahead and signed on the dotted line. It was like, okay, look, we're good or whatever with this. We expect to see the pay raise, all that jazz or whatever, because that's kind of what the verbal agreement was kind of stating. Alabama A&M was still a little hesitant because, you got to think, new president coming into the situation with Dr. Wims, who had already been on campus, so he knew the inner workings of things. Also, new athletic director in Dr. Paul Bryant, who's been around various HBCUs, but still it was his real, first, 5 months, I think, on the job at that point. So clearly, those guys are going to want to look into it a little bit more and all that. Well, eventually, Alabama A&M gets on board and signs a contract or whatever with the city of Birmingham. Them signing the contract with the city of Birmingham about 3-4 weeks ago or whatever solidified that the game was going to be played in Birmingham for at least the next 4 years, 99 out of 100% or whatever at Legion Field for the time being, unless there's something else that changes. But apparently, we found out later that Alabama A&M did not sign a deal with the Alabama Sports Council. And because they did not sign a deal with the Alabama Sports Council, or ASC, they quote unquote missed out on an additional payment. And that payment ranged somewhere around $700,000. They're already going to get $500,000 for playing in the game or whatever, just like Alabama State was. Well, we came to find out that there was a deadline to actually sign that thing with the ASC, and they didn't meet it / didn't decide to go ahead and sign or whatever. Anyway, which I did find something very, very interesting or whatever about that. Then a few days later, we find out that it seems like the ASC went ahead and rewarded Alabama State with an increase in the money that they were going to pay them. So in the years that Alabama State will be a home team over the next 4 years in this conference game in the Magic City Classic over in Birmingham, they're going to receive a payment of, I think, $800,000 or something, whatever, which brings their payment to like $1.3 million in their 2 seasons that they'll be the home team. Now, Alabama A&M did not do that, so the years that that Alabama A&M is the home team, both teams are only going to get $500,000 from payments wise or whatever. And those are the updates that we've got from the Magic City Classic. Clearly, I know both teams and administration have been asking for more money through the years. I do find it interesting that the ASC rewards one team for signing with them and one team and doesn't do it for the other team or whatever because they didn't sign by a certain deadline. And actually, I text a few people, including Dr. Cavil, and he asked a very good question, like, what's the purpose of the Alabama Sports Council during the years that Alabama State and Alabama A&M play, and Alabama A&M is the home team, but yet the Alabama Sports Council is not paying any additional money in those years. So that's kind of where we stand at with the Magic City Classic. So it'll continue to be played in Birmingham over the next 4 years. As of now, at Legion Field, there's still talks about trying to see if they can negotiate it to protect the stadium, but there's some other things that you can just go all the way down the line, and we ain't got enough time to talk about all that or whatever. But the main thing right now is that, the game will be played Legion Field next 4 years in Birmingham. And in the years that Alabama State plays, they get paid a little bit more than what Alabama A&M get paid. In the years that Alabama A&M is the home team, both Alabama A&M and Alabama State get the same amount of money, which is only coming from the city of Birmingham.
All right. Before I turn it over to Doc, I've got a couple of questions, and I'm coming with these questions as just Joe fan right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm coming Joe fan as with a math background, that economist background that I have. So in the years that Alabama State is the home team,
correct,
1.25, 1.3, somewhere up in there is what they will receive in the years.
Correct. But only Alabama State.
Right. In the years, Alabama A&M is only getting $500 for 4 years. Alabama State is getting 1.3 in 2 and 500 each in 2. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, you are. So there'll be 2 years where both teams just make $500,000, and then there'll be 2 years where Alabama State makes 1.2, 1.3, and Alabama A&M only gets $500,000.
And I know you're not the person to answer these questions, but these are the 2 questions that I have just related to those numbers. Number one, the money in those other 2 years, why is Alabama A&M not able to get some of the money? Because that money was going out anyway. If the contract would have been signed like they were supposed to be. And number 2, like you said, they're rewarding Alabama State for signing the contract. So they're taking the money that they're saving by not paying Alabama State, giving a little bit of it. By not paying Alabama A&M, they give it a little bit of it to Alabama State, but they still pocket it in the rest, or not expending the rest of it. So my question number 2 is, and this is not a football related question, but where is the rest of that money going? Because obviously in order to pay $800,000 to each team, they got to be making that money from somewhere. So where is the rest of that money going? Or are they saying that by Alabama A&M not signing this contract, that is that much of a detriment to them where they can't afford this anymore, which I find hard to believe. Anyway, those are the 2 questions that I have just off the top of my head. That's the stat nerd in me coming out with those questions.
No, man, those are some great questions. And clearly, we just, like, from a media standpoint, we do not know fully enough coming from the information that was just provided to us. Sure, I've had some he say, she say type conversations with some folks that may or may not be connected to some things, but clearly that's still not the full interpretation and full truths of everything that's going on just in general. So that's why, I don't want to, throw out any additional thing. I just have to just go ahead and give it to you what you got going on by the facts. But I really do wonder, what happens to that quote unquote money that they had said they were setting aside or whatever for the team that's not making the additional amounts I do wonder that. Also, too, it's the Magic City Classic. It's Alabama A&M versus Alabama State. So why in those years would someone basically be treated as the high and almighty, and the other one's kind of like the redheaded stepchild in that sense. I really do kind of question that in a scenario. The SWAC guy and me, clearly we don't see a situation where like Southern and Grambling, get divvied up and one gets way more than the other. Like, no, you do not, you do not see that in that scenario. I mean, also, Drew, you got the FAMU roots or whatever in you. I'm pretty sure FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, no matter what happens with the Florida Classic, they see just about even bills when it comes to financials. Down there, I would expect. Dr. Cavil could probably go in and talk and being a part of both Texas Southern and Prairie View with their Labor Day Classic for all those years. I'm almost certain that you kind of see even between those. So I don't understand. Me personally, I don't understand why we're not seeing even in two particular years just because someone didn't sign a document with a event crew that's putting marketing things really out.
Well, I hope this doesn't turn into a Florida Classic back in the 80s when they essentially stopped playing the Florida Classic because of stuff like this with the contract, or turn into a Southern Heritage incident where everybody can't get along and ultimately somebody just reneges on the contract or pulls out of the contract and figures it's cheaper to get out of the contract than to continue to be in a contract that is not beneficial to them. Go ahead, Dr. Cavil. I know you're itching to get at this.
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep some basic questions because I know Mo is not negotiating the contract, so it's fair to ask him that type of question. But to your point, AD, and what you were saying is that this is unique and different than we see with the State Farm Classic between Southern and Grambling State, obviously the Blue Shield, Blue Cross Classic or Florida Classic between FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. And I think there was a question that asked all these folks working together, and I think it's pretty easy to say, yeah, they may be working together in some capacity, but the two institutions, in terms of the president's not working together, and the president of Alabama State made that really clear when he said he needs to do what's best for Alabama State. So that's a clear red herring to say that he's doing what he thinks is best for his institution, not in terms of mutually exclusive for both. But my question is for you, what were some of the concerns that you've been able to wrap your hands around in regards to what Alabama A&M was asking from the marketing contract? Because I think it's important for people to understand that there's two contracts that were required to be signed. One was with the city to play the game. Both schools have signed off on that contract. There was a separate contract that is in terms of the marketing component of this. And that's with ASC, the Alabama Sports Consortium or whatever the C stands for, that is responsible for marketing games. So people need to understand that there's two things going on here. So that Alabama and Alabama State have signed on to play the game. And as AD alluded to, it's important for us to understand that this is now a conference game. So the game will be played in terms of the conference.
Somewhere.
Yeah, just the negotiating part is where it's going to be played, which is a whole different thing. So you don't have to worry about, in this case, unlike the Southern Heritage Classic where the game literally can be counseled to some degree, it's going to be played. So that's a little different from that perspective. So, Mo, my question to you again, with all that on the floor is, what are you understanding that Alabama A&M is having some concerns with in terms of the negotiation they were having with the marketing group, ASC?
All right, so this is what was provided to us, and this is like plain terms writing. According to the correspondence from the university to the city and the ASC, the universities requested revisions in both agreements that one event official says they may have dire consequences for this year's Classic, the fall contest, a home contest between Alabama State and Alabama A&M scheduled for the date. The agreements extend to align and lock the game with Legion Field. So there are still some concerns about the future of Legion Field. That continues to be talks. I know that's not the biggest thing, but it's continuing to be talks, especially since the Magic City Classic is now really the primary tenant of Legion Field. And I mean, look, let's just be honest. Oh, excuse me, y'all. The old gray lady. It's got a whole lot of. It has a whole lot of history. It really, really does. You know, black college football, PWI. Like, there's a whole lot of history with it. But she has been showing her age for a very, very long time, and clearly, you know, some folks are really, really wondering about just the facility upkeep. I know there was some talks about trying to see if they could get it named a national landmark where you get federal dollars and then that money can be pumped in every year into it or whatever. I know they got an upgrade maybe 2 years ago, but somebody told me best. It was like, look, that upgrade was basically just to keep it in a standard running position. It's almost like putting a Band-Aid on it or whatever. And, you know, all right, hey, here's all the money. Let's just keep it up the code, and then it's good to go, if you know what I mean. So I'm pretty sure that has something to do with it. And then I think also something as well, you do have a new stadium in Protective. You don't have the seating capacity, but there are still ways to rally around it. The seats got, like, I've heard that. So I have to figure that that's going to continue to be a play into it. But, you know, clearly these conversations are definitely just happening more so between Dr. Bryant, Dr. Wims, and the ASC as far as, look, we just don't see eye to eye on certain things, and maybe they're also saying, look, this is a new regime, a new day. We understand our value, we understand our worth, and you know, we want a tweak here. Maybe you can give us a tweak there. That's all. That's all we're asking. You know, I think probably in the next month or so, we'll probably get full information on what those true tweaks are. But I mean, I'll go and say it's probably clear as day that the location of it being at Legion Field has probably something to do with it for sure.
The old great lady has arthritis. As if for those who've never been to Legion Field in a while,
she may have she may have
osteoporosis.
Yeah, osteoporosis. So
yeah,
arthritis. No.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Deal. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's well, that was actually a point that you made in regards to the great lady, pun intended. With that being said, are you aware of whether, I know they gave them a date, and that date has passed, and I think Alabama State moved forward signing their contractual arrangement. But are you aware of whether they can continue to negotiate, or if there are continued negotiations?
You know what? I am unaware of either, to be honest with you. The last time I talked to Dr. Bryant, it was literally the day before they signed their agreement, you know, for the game to literally be played. And, you know, he was straightforward with me. He was like, we're still working on some stuff. He's like, Mo, I would love to tell you more things, but even if I tell you this or if I tell you that, you know, we may go in the opposite direction of it. So yeah, I'm unsure if the negotiation with the ASC can continue forward and can them give them another deadline to be like, hey, sign with us, we get more money and all that jazz. I'm really unsure at the moment. Doc, I hope, you know, for the sake of fairness that they are. But then again, I don't want to sit here and like kind of play sides with it when one person feels that it's not the best overall deal and they have to do what's best for them in general.
Follow-up question I have is some clarity. I know there's talking about $1.2 million. Is that $1.2 million including the $500K that's in already set up from the city, or is that?
Yes. So it would be a $1.2 million payout in general, with $500,000 coming from the city, and then $700,000 or $800,000 coming from the ASC. Because right around the time where the Alabama Sports Council was kind of going back and forth, like, you know, could they give them more money or whatever? It was kind of like, okay, well, look, it looks like we're going to go ahead and just try to commit somewhere between $700,000 and $750,000. And if I remember correctly, those meetings got pretty heated as well. And not saying we playing a race car thing, but it from the outside looking in, it definitely did look like that. So, but yeah, the overall payment would come from two entities, City of Birmingham and the ASC, and then those two dollar amounts would equal a total that exceeds 1.2 million.
It's fascinating because so you're talking about 750K coming from the ASC group essentially, and
times two normally.
Right, which I'm saying that's 1.5.
1.5.
Total they're giving in terms of that's their pot, but they gave a million because they increased the pot to Alabama State to 1.5. So if the pot is already set at $1.5 million, they gave $1 million away. That means they only have $500,000 left. So the most that Alabama A&M can negotiate from would be $500,000, unless they're going to come up with more money, another $1 million. So I'm curious what that looks like. The other thing that's out there, Mo, that you might want to start considering asking questions you can get your hands around next time you follow up is what I'm intrigued about now is essentially negotiation is for the rights of Alabama A&M to put the stuff on the marketing stuff to get it out there, right? So if you didn't sign a contract, you don't have the rights to Alabama A&M. So how do you market the Magic City Classic if you don't have the rights to Alabama A&M?
You know, that is a very good question. I mean, because clearly the official logo has, you know, McDonald's and Coca-Cola, and then it's got the Alabama State Hornet on one side and the A&M Bulldog on the other side. So that's
where I'm saying some people are asking what is the negotiation power at Alabama A&M. So those are some questions I think that you can ask and get out there, and it would be intriguing to find out. If not to say they would have to tell you. But those are some things that come to mind, understanding the market component. You have to have the right. So, yeah, Alabama State can say they're doing all this, but it'll be interesting when the flyer comes out. All you can put on there is Alabama State material.
Now, Mo, question for you. And you can hopefully you can shine some light to people who are not familiar with the Magic City Classic. What is the economic impact of the Magic City Classic for the Birmingham region, and in general, how does that compare with other big events that occur in that region? Because we know Birmingham is home of the whatever is it still called the Final 48? It was called the Final 48 when I lived in Alabama, the high school basketball tournaments, and we just know that they had the NCAA first round there this past year. So what is the economic impact of the Magic City Classic, and how does it compare to some of the other big sporting events that occur in that region?
Economic impact for the Magic City Classic, especially in the Birmingham region, ranges somewhere between about 21 to 25 million, per year for BHAM. And also to answer your question, the Final 48 is just now known as the AHSA Basketball Finals. They made that change whenever high schools added Class 7A here in Alabama, but it's still being played at Legacy Arena inside the BJCC for sure. Same place that hosted the first and second round of the NCAA tournament, which had both Alabama and Auburn playing in those games. As far as economic impact, yeah, it's somewhere between 21, 25 million. Roughly, that's like the numbers. I've been here almost 10 years now, and that's the numbers I've kind of heard between that. I think I've seen it exceeded maybe once or twice, but I'll go ahead and just go with the average of that. So, yeah, City of Birmingham and surrounding areas make a lot of money off the Magic City Classic. One thing I can say is that you do have not big events, but you have events that like put the Magic City Classic's name out there, in one way, shape, or form. Perfect example. So this upcoming week, the Regents Tradition, which is a huge golf tournament at the golf course in Hoover, if I'm not mistaken.
One of Robert Trey Jones' courses.
Correct. Yeah. So that's happening this week, and their pro-am every year always brings Nick Saban, Bo Jackson, Charles Barkley, and all kind of other guys. I think through anybody that has any type of popularity that people just would know, they're usually coming through it. Well, through the years as well, the head coaches of both Alabama State and Alabama A&M have also been on the Pro-Am golf trail as well. So, previous years we had seen Coach Maynard and former coach Hill Ely, but as of last year was Coach Maynard and Eddie Robinson Jr. And I looked on the schedule; they're scheduled to be on that tour once again, and I think they're playing for money that'll eventually like go into the Magic City Classic pot or something of that nature. But yeah, you see the logos and all that, and they'll have some other things when it comes to college fairs and things of that nature. Then clearly, whenever you get to the week of it, between the tailgating and all the other events or whatever, it definitely draws from that. So yeah, definitely huge economic impact. I do feel that there should be a little bit more happening from a payout standpoint, but that's just me on the outside looking in. I mean, clearly, I'm not the one negotiating like Dr. Cavil says. I'm not that person in that room, so I can't say that. But clearly, you'd always love to see a little bit more go out. But if it's not part of the plan, then I can't say anything else beyond that.
All right. Any final questions for Mo, Dr. Cavil?
No, that's all I had. Great information that he's provided, and it's obviously brought a clearer understanding in some formats, but it also allows us to ask additional questions and keep up with Mo to find those answers.
Speaking of keeping up with Mo, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, how to follow you, all the plugs. And by the way, great calling with you this weekend. I know I said it before, but I want to say it again, especially on that championship game. You weren't on the 12-minute marathon with me, were you? No, you were on the opposite.
No,
yes,
I was only on with you guys for 10 of those 12 innings because I had to go get to another game.
Yeah, Dr. Cavil, our game went so long. We ran a 3-man booth, thought we were gonna get out of there, and a game started on another field. So Bo had to pull off of our game to go start the other game by himself. And then when we finally finished our game, we came over and helped him out and became the second and third voice for him on that other game. But go ahead, Bo. Tell everybody where we can find you at.
Absolutely. On Twitter, you can find me at Mo Carter, MoCarter, Fox 54. It's the same thing also on my professional Facebook page. Go ahead and check me out. I'm here in the Huntsville, Alabama area. I'm a sports director at Fox 54 WZDX. So, clearly, hey, Edwin Moore says, I'm dressed for work. Did I just come off air? No, I didn't just come off air. Actually, we had a late church event today. So I literally went to church, went to lunch with my wife, and then went back to church. And now I'm actually in the parking lot of the station because I just didn't feel like popping up the laptop and letting people hear this great conversation I'm having or whatever. So as soon as I get off here, I'll be heading on to get ready for my 9 p.m. show and then my 10 p.m. Sports show as well. So, but just gotta stay in the mix. But as I mentioned, yeah, at Mo Carter Fox 54. That's both on Twitter and also on Facebook. I'm here in Huntsville. Clearly, I cover the SWAC with Alabama A&M, and I have other teams I cover as well, including University of North Alabama, Alabama Huntsville, and being in the Southeastern Conference footprint, that means we got to go ahead and cover Alabama and Auburn. But at the same time, just gotta do it just in general, and that's that's what I tell people all the time. That's what I went to school for. I'm doing what I love, and I'm always appreciate the opportunity that was given to me. And then on another note, AD, I appreciate the opportunity of working with you and Charles and Brian and very, 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 very busy but good friend Roy Evans. I really pray and hope that he gets some rest this week because man, he put in a lot of work as that. So shout out to him as well in that sense. A lot of people really just do not know like how hard that man works or whatever with that. But as far as me, yeah, like I said, I gave you all the handles, and if you actually want to watch me live, you can actually go to fox54.com. Hit the watch live tab. I say maybe about 9:40 if you don't want to sit through all that news or whatever, and you can check out my sportscast, and then you can actually keep it there. We have a 30-minute sports show right after that, and that's 9:40 on the Central Time. Central Standard Time.
Yeah. The sportscast is the person who always gets cuts out when it rains. Anyway.
Who you telling?
Go ahead, Dr. Cavil. Go ahead and give all the plugs, my brother.
This is Dr. Cavil. You can catch me on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab every Tuesday and Thursday at Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Of course, that is with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Starts at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. We'd love to have you join us on the show. You can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can get updates from me regularly at Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyatta Cavil, like you see on the screen. Again, that's DrKenyatta Cavil. You can catch us on Twitter at Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1. Make sure you add the 1 on the Twitter account, but at YouTube and YouTube and Facebook is just Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Catch me also on Instagram as well. But you can catch me on various people's shows, platforms, trying to provide updates and information from a business perspective on HBCU sporting culture.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cavil, for that. And Dr. Cavil says, for the second time, since I'm not going to get out the rest of the BCSN baseball and softball rankings, I will forward them on to you. And if you, if you get an opportunity, everybody can see them on the show, but they will be available on the BCSN Twitter page. Should be available tomorrow afternoon on the BCSN Twitter page. This is AD Drew. Want to remind everyone to like, share, subscribe, and download. Please donate. Hey, I need to see a few more thumbs up and a few more hearts when I look at these numbers from today's show. Please, if y'all don't do anything else, you ain't got to like. You ain't got to hit the like button. I need you to hit the subscribe button, though. We definitely need you to subscribe so that we can get our numbers up here. Godspeed to my partner, Brian Fulford, who should be getting close back to the Orlando area after traveling back from Albany, Georgia. Bo knows all about that long ride, except he went the opposite direction. I'll be on the ONG Strike Zone this Wednesday. Brian's going to be out this Wednesday, so you can catch me on the ONG Strike Zone also on this Wednesday. Want to give a special thanks to Coach Mike Ellison for joining us, our Black College Sports Network softball champion, Edward Waters University Tigers, non-Division I softball champion. Congratulations to E-Dub, as they like to call him down there. SWAC softball coming up this week. So I think I got everything covered. Did I get it all covered, fellas?
Yeah, I think you got it all in.
Yes, sir.
I'm not used to being in the big chair. I like Brian being in the big chair and me being his backup, but I can't handle the big chair too. So for Kelvin Carter, who also joined us earlier, Mo Carter, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, this is AD Drew. We'll see y'all later on next week, everybody. Peace out. We'll holler.